Okay, today we are going to be talking about organizational patterns. And so you should already have this organizational patterns handout in the study section of your binder. You will need something to write with and you need to follow along and take notes along with me. You can pause this video as needed if you need more time to write something down. Let's go ahead and get started. So, organizational pattern refers to the way a nonfiction text is organized. So, an author is going to organize and structure their text in a way for a certain reason. And we are going to focus on 5 of these ways an author could organize their text, 5 different organizational patterns. So, the first one that we're going to look at is problem and solution. So, problem and solution. The author will introduce a problem and tell you how the problem could be or has been fixed. There may be one solution to fix the problem or several different solutions mentioned. So, problem solution, the author will introduce a problem and tell you how the problem could be or has been fixed. There may be one solution to fix the problem or several different solutions mentioned. For example, advertisements in magazines or TV for certain products. Advertisements in magazines or TV for certain products. So think about when you've seen an advertisement for a specific medication. They're saying that there is a problem, that you are sick, and they are saying that their medication is the solution. So that would be an example of a problem-solution organizational pattern. So the next organizational pattern we have is called cause and effect. So with cause and effect, the author describes something that has happened, which has had an effect on or caused something else to happen. It could be a good effect or a bad effect. There may be more than one cause, and there may also be more than one effect. So, cause and effect, the author describes something that has happened, which has had an effect on or caused something else to happen. It could be a good effect or a bad effect. There may be more than one cause, and there may also be more than one effect. So, a real-life example of cause and effect, a newspaper article is written about a volcano eruption which had an effect on flights and tourism. So, because the volcano erupted, flights and tourism were affected. So next we have compare and contrast. Compare and contrast is our third organizational pattern. So with compare and contrast, the author's purpose is to tell you how two things are the same and how they are different by comparing them. So with compare and contrast, the author's purpose is to tell you how two things are the same and how they are different by comparing them. So real life example, a bargain hunter writing an article about buying store brand items and how it compares with buying name brand items. So if there was somebody and they are writing an article in a magazine and they are trying to find similarities and differences between buying store brand versus name brand, they're comparing and contrasting. So next we have description or list. So description or list, with this structure, the author often tells a lot of information or lists facts about a certain subject. It's up to the reader to determine what he thinks is important and sometimes even interesting enough to remember. So description or list. With this structure, the author often tells a lot of information or lists facts about a certain subject. It's up to the reader to determine what he thinks is important and sometimes even interesting enough to remember. So a real-life example of the description organizational pattern. A soccer coach writes a letter describing to parents exactly what kind of cleats to buy for their kids. This would be a description organizational pattern. So the last organizational pattern we're going to look at is called time, order, or sequence. You might often also hear it referred to as chronological. All of those words mean a similar thing. So with time, order, or sequence, or chronological, information in the text is written in a specific order or timeline format. So some real life examples would be recipes, directions, or events in history. All of those would be examples of time, order, or sequence, or chronological. So now if you go to the next page, you should see another chart here that on the left side has organizational patterns, in the middle has signal words, and then the right side has the signal to the reader. So these are talking about the same organizational patterns we just went through. So with organizational patterns, we can organize them into specific graphics, into specific thinking maps to help us organize our thoughts. So the description organizational pattern is this bubble map right here. So with this bubble map, you would put your topic in the middle, and you would put details, facts, examples, all around it on each of those lines. So that's how you would use that description thinking map. Signal words. So when you see these words in a text, this should clue you into the fact that you are probably looking at a descriptive text. So words like such as, for example, for instance, most important, in front, beside, near. If you see those words, that means that you might be looking at a description organizational pattern. Not always, but it's a good starting place if you're not sure. So with description, another signal that you might be looking at a description organizational pattern is when you see a list or set of characteristics will follow, uses colon to list ideas. So when you see those things, you might be looking at the description organizational pattern. So if you are reading a sentence and it said, this bird is soft and loud and flies and has a beak and has wings, that's a list of characteristics. That would be a description. So next we have sequence and order. Also, we said it can also be called chronological. And with this thinking map, you just will write the events in order similar to a timeline. So whatever event happens first, and then second, and then third, we're just putting those events in order. So our signal words for chronological are first, second, third, before, on a date, not long after that, next, at the same time, finally, then. All of those clue you into the fact that you might be looking at a sequence order chronological organizational pattern. The signal to the reader is when a sequence of events or steps in a process is being described. If you see that, you know you're probably looking at the chronological organizational pattern. So next we have compare and contrast. The thinking map for compare and contrast is just a basic Venn diagram. With that Venn diagram, on the outside you will put differences between the two topics, and in the middle you'll put the similarities between the two different topics. The signal words for compare and contrast are the words like, unlike, but, in contrast. On the other hand, however, both, also, to, as well as. All of those tell you you might be looking at a compare and contrast organizational pattern. The signal to the reader is when you see similarities and differences that are being presented and or discussed. That's your signal that you are looking at a compare and contrast organizational pattern. And lastly, we have cause and effect and problem solution. The reason these two are together is because they have the same thinking map. This flow map right here is what we use for both cause and effect and problem solution. So we would put causes over here and effects over on this right side, or you could put problems on the left and solutions on the right. Your signal words for cause and effect and problem solution are therefore, so, this led to, as a result, because, if, then. You will know that you are looking at either cause and effect or problem solution if there's evidence of causes and effects. So causes and effects will be given, or problems and solutions will be described. The topic always goes in the middle, meaning the thinking map is where you would put the topic. So with cause, effect, and problem solution, it's easy to get these mixed up. So you need to make sure that you're really careful that if something is cause and effect, you should see specific causes listed, specific effects listed. If you are saying that it is problem solution, there needs to be a clear issue that you can identify and a clear way to solve that issue. So these notes should be in the study section of your binder, and then you can go ahead and move on to your next activity for today.